from the high mountains. White horsehair, imperial stallions.
Sulfur from cannons.
Black Arrow, you've never failed me, and I've always recovered you. I had you from my father and he from of old. Ever you came from the forges of the true king under the mountain. Go now and speed well.
Hello and welcome to D6 Damage. You can achieve a variety of things with an Inquisitor, but one thing that I think the class has a lot of potential with is ranged DPS. With a lot of ranged combat characters, you end up just not dealing as much damage as your melee companions. And I think the Inquisitor is really good at getting around that and getting those extra damage points on there. Alright, so we already know what class we're going with, now let's look at race. The race I'm going to recommend is an Aasimar, specifically a subbreed, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, called a Garuda. They get a +2 to dexterity and a +2 to wisdom. Now let's talk about the ability scores you need to think about with this character. Obviously, since your race gives you that +2 to dex and +2 to wisdom, those are really important stats for the Inquisitor. But you're also going to want to think about intelligence and strength. Intelligence for those extra skill points, because the Inquisitor is a skill-based class. And strength, because a strength modifier allows you to take advantage of compound longbows, which add your strength to range damage. That's not necessarily that great of a dump stat, because you are going to want to do things like intimidate, but you can get around that. Alright, let's look at your judgments. First off, it's important to remember that the judgment is a sacred bonus, for the purposes of knowing which bonuses stack with each other. When you're using this character, there's a specific judgment combination that I highly recommend. That's Justice, Destruction, and Smiting. Justice increases your odds of hitting your target, Destruction does more damage, and Smiting aligns your weapon to bypass DR. So, you're going to hit more often, hit harder, and cut through their resistances. The feats I recommend for this Inquisitor build are, first off, at first level, take Point Blank Shot. At third level, take Precise Shot. This removes the penalty for shooting into melee. At 5th level, take Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot allows you to fire an additional arrow during your first attack. At 7th level, take Improved Initiative. As an Inquisitor, it's important to be able to go first. This allows you to get things like spells, and to do your knowledge checks to know what you're fighting, so you can Bane your weapon appropriately. Finally, at 9th level, grab Extended Bane. This increases the total amount of time that you can have your weapon baned for, which will really make a difference in those longer fights. As an Inquisitor, you get to take a single cleric domain. I think that for this build, there are a number of domains which really work. First, I recommend the Knowledge, Thought subdomain. This allows you to treat all of your knowledges as class skills. Travel is another really good domain. It gives you 10 feet of additional movement. Next, you could also think about the Protection domain. This adds +1 to all of your saves per 5 levels. The final domain, which I strongly recommend you consider, is the Darkness domain and the Night subdomain. This gives you Blind Fight as a bonus feat, and its supernatural ability allows you to become invisible in areas of shadow. This can be very helpful for getting the drop on opponents. However, if they have night vision, they'll still be able to see you. As you increase in level as an Inquisitor, you get Teamwork feats. The Teamwork feats I recommend for this build are, at 3rd level, take Coordinated Shot. This gives you a +1 when your allies are threatening a foe. Then, at 6th level, take Enfelding Fire. This gives you a +2 on attack rolls if your enemy is being flanked. Then, at 9th level, take Target of Opportunity. What this means is, if an ally within 30 feet makes a ranged attack against an opponent, you can make a ranged attack against that opponent as an immediate action. Now then, on to the spells which I recommend. At first level, and remember your first level spells are your bread and butter as any caster. First off, I recommend Wrath. This gives you a +1 morale bonus, up to a maximum of +3 as you increase in level. And at 12th level, you're basically treated as if you had the improved crit feat. This applies to one opponent. I would also recommend Divine Favor. This gives you a +1 luck bonus that increases as you level until it maxes out at +3 at level 9, to both attack and damage, just like Wrath. You can't go wrong with the protection froms. That's protection from evil, protection from law, chaos. A great spell for any situation. And the final level 1 spell I would recommend you think about is Shield of Faith. This gives you a +4 shield bonus. First off, of the second level spells, I'm going to recommend Spiritual Weapon. This is a really awesome spell that summons a ghostly weapon that attacks for you. Some things you just have to do because they're awesome. Also think about Resist Energy. There's another useful spell called Flames of the Faithful. This gives your weapon the flaming condition. And finally, Invisibility, because it's really hard for them to expect the Inquisition when they can't even see them. I'm going to end my spell recommendations with the third level spells. First off, you have Magic Weapon Greater. This is an awesome scaling enhancement bonus. Also think about the ever-useful Dispel Magic. The upgraded version of Protection From, Magic Circle Against. This only covers an area, but if you know that something's coming for you, it's a great defense to throw down. Finally, consider taking Blood Biography. This is just a really cool thematic spell for an Inquisitor that allows you to learn about an opponent by looking at a minute amount of their blood, just a drop. Alright, now on to weapons and armor. The weapon I most recommend you take is the longbow. Specifically, the compound longbow if you have a strength modifier high enough to use one. This works well with all of your feats, and it's also a comparatively easy weapon to get your hands on. Now when it comes to armor, Inquisitors are proficient with both light armor and medium armor. Now because this build sort of depends on mobility and moving around the battlefield and continually making those ranged attacks, extra movement is very helpful. So think about sticking with light armor. That is until you get enough cash to go for Mithril. I want to end by discussing how this character is supposed to work in combat. Basically, how this build works is it's all about stacking up those damage bonuses. First, remember, bonuses from the same source don't stack. Your judgments are a sacred bonus. So when you're casting a spell, make sure it gives you either a luck bonus, a morale bonus like Wrath, or an enhancement bonus. So what you want to do, round 1, is first off, use your judgments. Obviously, if it's something worth using the judgments on, don't waste it on, like, little nothing threats. Then Bane your weapon, because that gives you the additional d6 and the enchantment enhancement bonus. Then cast spells like Wrath or Greater Magic Weapon. All of those add up to when your arrows hit, and they will most likely hit, you're going to be throwing more dice and more passive damage at your enemy. I hope you've enjoyed this Ranged DPS Inquisitor build for Pathfinder. If you're interested in more character builds, class analysis, and strategy videos about Pathfinder and D&D, check out D6 Damage right here on YouTube. Thank you for watching.